if the same load can be found on ITS, there's no reason to pay a premium, right? I might as well just go to ITS. So for us, we really try to establish exclusivity if we could. If not, we wanted a posting advantage, meaning we would compensate someone if they would post to us first by some amount of time, because the half-life of a load is relatively short if you're talking about a lane that has a significant amount of movement in it. By short, I mean minutes. And so, we could say, yeah, find loads exclusively or with us first. That becomes a significant differentiator in what otherwise would be considered somewhat of a commodity offering.
Sure, and so that's to kind of the shipper and broker side. None of these players compensate the carriers to kind of prioritize their platform?
No, we would offer to both where we could do it. I mean, because they're both in the basis of commodity. A truck is a truck is a truck.
Fair.
But a truck or a load in a black hole like Florida that is a consumption, not a production state, is worth a lot to a carrier who's looking for a backhaul. The flip side holds true where you have a lot of freight at Chicago and maybe not a lot of capacity. So it depends on where you're at. That exclusive capacity or exclusive freight can hold a lot of value, and it could be in and of itself a reason why you would pay a premium for a service like ours, because a single move could pay for our subscription. So the value proposition is pretty much a no-brainer if you come with that sort of offering.
That's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that in terms of geographically where how much demand and capacity is going to differ. Is there any kind of geographical difference amongst any of these players in terms of where they have particularly strong relationships?
Well, on the mainline ones, no, they're very national. They're very distributed. They're smaller players. There's 123 Loadboard's been around for a long time. They have a nice looking platform, but they've never really developed significant scale. A lot of times they get their freight from these freight aggregators like Post Everywhere. And so, frankly, a lot of that freight is you've seen on a dozen other load boards, because there are a lot of little guys out there that have their niches. But no, I would say that the mainline ones, no, there's not significant geography. If there's any significance, it probably is going to be more along the lines of specialty, or maybe like reefer. Specialty, meaning large moves or things of that nature, may be stronger in one than another. But they really represent a relatively small percentage of freight movement. I mean, even spot is 15 to 20% of truckload moves. So it's still a minority, but it's of a big market. So it still represents a lot of freight movement.
Sure, that makes sense. And then, so what are kind of some of the other players in the space besides DAT and Truck Stop? Or do they pretty much have kind of a duopoly?
I would say it's kind of that's a good way of putting it, a duopoly. And then there's everyone else. And then there's, like 123 Load Boards. You've got Direct Freight, Truckers Path. There's just a whole host. There's a ton of little guys. But they're just kind of me too. There's not a particularly unique value proposition per se. Now, there are specialty companies like maybe handle drayage moves. They're very different, and that's something that a space that DAT never got into, because that's a very niche market, and something we never really explored. Like same thing, we never really got in heavy haul or any of these specialty moves, but there is definitely a market for those. It's just a small one.
Got it. That